Hello and welcome to the Creators Guild podcast. I'm Chris Howell and with me,
Jared Lovelady.
and we're here to talk about all things creative. And we're going to start out, as per usual, reading another chapter from A Flight from Shadows, which, again, if you haven't gotten your copy of A Flight from Shadows, go get it. If you do have a copy, give it a read and go give us a review. We are in chapter 31. A Plan to Escape. Cycle of Rio, year 12182. I may be forced to leave, Devlar said as he held her tightly to him, but my heart will remain with you. One day I will return. Not even the gods will be able to stop me. Excerpt from Devlar's Journey, Tev Gorum. After leaving her father, Tawara and Athandra were escorted by the steward, along with two House Umari guards, to a room that had been made ready. It was small yet comfortably furnished. They had been relocated to the main level of the palace, a short distance from one of the kitchens, and just a few turns from the stable-side entrance. Tawara had sat in front of the small writing desk in stunned silence, the scene playing out in her mind. The emotions of the previous months welled back up within her, building into a storm of fear, sadness, and shock. She was supposed to be safe here. That is what Corvin had said, and Captain Ethrin had agreed. Their trip to Glen Heights would be a break in habit that would reduce the chances of another incident. Yet it had happened again, right here in the palace. She had made the choice to continue the pursuit of becoming Accolade. The assassins had followed her here, and as a result, her father was dead. She had sat, feeling despondent for much of the night. What was she supposed to do? Eventually, her luck would run out, and she would die too. And what if they killed Athandra instead? She looked up at the other woman, who sat in a similarly dejected fashion on the foot of the single bed in the room. A wave of panic had clutched her chest at the thought. With that, she had made up her mind. She could not continue to live in fear, watching those around her, the people she loved, die in her stead. Tomorrow she would leave. She had waited until morning to tell Athandra, who had seemingly taken the news in stride. The other woman paced the floor. Her soft silk slippers swished on the striped carpet as she journeyed back and forth in the small room. After several times across, she came to a stop in front of Tawara. I do not care what you think is safest, Athandra. I'm going. Tonight, Tawara barked. I didn't say I thought it was safest to stay here. I said I don't know if it was any better to run off to the gods only know where. Have you even thought of that? Where are we going to go? Tawara watched the other woman, who had resumed her pacing. Did Athandra just say we? The question must have been plain on her face, and Athandra spoke again, her tone dry. Yes, you heard me right. I said we. There is no way I am going to let you go on your own. You have no idea the dangers out in the world. Athandra paused and tapped her chin, looking off in the distance. Oh, Athandra, I had hoped you would come, Tawara blurted out. She talked so fast it was a wonder Athandra could keep up. I did not know how to ask you to leave everything, connections with your family, the comforts of civilized society, your station in the house, although I am not sure what that would be if I were gone. Tawara felt almost giddy this morning. It was an odd sensation. She was not happy by any stretch of the imagination, yet the moroseness of the night before had left her and was replaced with the determination she had made up her mind to leave. Her spirits were buoyed even more now that Athandra agreed to go with her, without her even having to ask. It will have to be some place secluded, Athandra said, out of the province, and away from any Umari-owned lands in any other parts of the realm. It should probably be out of Kuvia entirely. We are going to Samunas, Tawara said matter-of-factly. Samunas? Athandra inquired. You want to go to the monastery in Adamar? The caravan with the Yokari fighter is headed there. I thought I might find a way to hide amongst them. Athandra tapped her chin again, considering the proposal. It is in wooded territory, well away from Kuvia. It's secluded. Almost no one goes there. The monks and the old ones would take us in, I am sure of it, though that changes your plan to leave today. From what I understand, the caravan isn't leaving for a day or two. Well, I am making this up as I go. You will have to give me a little leeway. Athandra knelt, reaching out to take Tawara's hands in hers. I know you have been through so much, and you are the princess-elect after all, and I'm just a handmaid, so of course I'll have to give you some leeway. Athandra, I know. We've grown close, but you are the princess-elect, and that must be given its proper weight. We cannot afford to be too rash. You cannot afford it, no matter what you're feeling. I was thinking about it a lot last night. Not the leaving, but our situation. If we had been in your room last night, we both would be dead. Since joining your house, I have witnessed 2 assassination attempts, both resulting in deaths. I am not a target, but I stand between any threat that is doing this and their prey. As I said before, my fate is tied to yours. I promised your father that I would stand by you and watch over you, and I meant it. I followed you on your harebrained scheme to see the blood binding, and somehow it saved our lives. I'll keep following you on whatever crazy path you decide to take us down, but I'll try to do better at advising you, too. I agree with you. For both our sakes, we should flee and find a place to remain safe until the threats are not as imminent. Maybe you should be the princess, Tuara said, giving Athandra's hands a squeeze. Athandra rose. I am content to be your advisor. She moved to perch on the edge of the bed. Why Samunis? She asked. I think it's a good idea, but as I said, we need to be sure. Tuara watched the other woman, her bronze skin and flashing green eyes, her small pointed ears barely poking through her thick black hair. So exotic, so different from herself, yet they were alike in so many ways. It was no wonder they had developed such a friendship. There is something I need to tell you, she said, lifting the top of the writing desk and retrieving a small leather-bound notebook. The once fine cover was now painted with streaks of dried blood, and pages were barely intact from being nearly pulled apart. Not much had been salvaged in her room, but someone had seen the little notebook and had passed it to the steward to deliver to Tuara. Of all the things that could have survived, she was overjoyed that her mother's journal had been the one thing to make it through the ordeal. She turned to Athandra, holding the notebook out for the other woman to see. What is that? Athandra asked, reaching out to take the book. It is one of my mother's journals, one that I had discovered with her hidden cache of books. The steward gave it to me last night when she showed us to our room. Athandra opened it carefully and leafed through several pages. It looks like it barely survived the attack, she said, handing it back to Tuara. I am glad it wasn't destroyed. She looked at Tuara, her face a mask of patience, as she waited for Tuara to speak. Tuara sucked in a breath and let it out slowly. My mother left me clues, she finally said, unsure of where to start. Clues too? Athandra asked, cocking her head, her brow furrowed. Well, clues is not really the right word, I suppose. She had secrets, and she put information about those secrets in this journal. She did not say what they were outright, only that one was dangerous and could destabilize some of the realms of Duradim, and the other was something about me. Athandra looked intrigued. She sat forward, her eyes bright. A secret about you, and another so dangerous it threatened the realms. What were the secrets? Well, I do not know, Tuara said, feeling a bit awkward now that she was saying it out loud. She did not say what either one was. What? Athandra asked incredulously. I thought you were going to tell me something huge. I was all excited to hear some amazing tale of deception, or some hidden thing that only you knew. But there's nothing? Tuara huffed, feeling a bit annoyed at Athandra's response. I did not say there was nothing. I said I did not know what the secrets are, only that she had secrets. Well, everyone has secrets, Tuara. I have secrets. You have secrets. But I don't know anything that would destabilize any of the realms. Yes, but my mother did, Athandra, Tuara demanded. She wrote hints in this journal about what they are, without spelling them out directly. She said they were too dangerous, and the knowledge would threaten our family if it came out in the wrong way. She meant for me to use what she had learned to secure the appointment as accolade. She said the secret had to do with water and blood, and would change how we all viewed the world. It would either propel me into the position or get me sentenced to death. Athandra looked at her suspiciously, squinting her eyes and pursing her lips. That's why you were so interested in blood binding. That's why you were so excited to go see the ritual. Well, Tuara said abashedly, now you know. But what could that possibly have to do with the realms? How could that destabilize them? I have no idea, Tuara proclaimed, launching to her feet and throwing her hands in the air. She shook the journal in Athandra's direction. She didn't tell me any of it. She planned on being alive and telling me when she thought I was ready. She only wrote vague hints in the journal, just enough to be frustrating, without revealing anything that would help me figure it out. All I know is that she studied it for years when she was trying to become Accolade. Then, after she married my father, she went to Samunis and found all the rest of the information. That is where she got her books from. She brought them back because they each had bits of information that supported her hypothesis. Samunis? Athandra asked, sounding astounded. She found the secret there? But most of the books there, and the things they study, are really old, millennia old. They study the cataclysm and try to piece together what caused it. Or they ponder on the universe. How could anything she found there upset the realms? I do not have any answers, Athandra, only questions, but going to Samunis might help me find some. Athandra pondered Tawara's words before giving her another curious look. So, what about this other secret, the one about you? Tawara shrugged. She did not say what it was either, only that there was something different about me, something that scared her. She took me to Samunis, and when we came back, whatever was going on was no longer a concern. She had found an answer, again at Samunis. She took you to Samunis? So you know about the monastery already? No, I was very young. I was a very young child. I do not even remember it. I did not know it happened until I read it in the journal. Well, what did your father say about all this? She felt a rush of sadness at the mention of her father, and faltered momentarily before answering. He never knew. My mother told him she wanted to go to Samunis while he was traveling, and she took me with her. He never knew any of this, but the answers to all of it, the secrets to being Accolade, whatever she was hiding about me, the answers are all in Samunis. Athandra shook, nodding firmly as she spoke, stood, nodding firmly as she spoke. Then we have to go to Samunis, not only to hide for a time, but to find your answers. We won't be able to do this on our own. We will have to make preparations, establish contacts, all sorts of things. She knew Athandra was right. They could not do it on their own. The threats to her life were real enough. Was it enough to flee with only her handmaid to some monastery in the backwoods of Adamar? We should talk to Captain Ithrin, she said. I trust him. He is the one who first warned me to be watchful of dangers from both outside and inside the house. Are you sure we can trust him? Athandra asked. I mean, he seems like an honorable and good man, and I think we can, but you need to be sure. Yes, she answered after a time. Yes, we can trust him. He has been looking out for me, well, us, for some time now. His men have been guarding us all this time. If there is anyone we can trust, it is him. All right, Athandra said, nodding in agreement. We can go to him, perhaps after the midday meal. I don't think anyone would see it out of the ordinary for us to go talk to him. Tawara again felt a pang of sadness, but pushed it away. Given the events of last night, I would think others would expect me to sit down with him. I will send him an invitation. Even with all that has happened, I believe he will take time for us. Athandra nodded. I agree. They spent the rest of the morning discussing what they thought they might need. They would require a considerable amount of help from Captain Ithrin, more than Tawara had originally considered. He would be putting himself at great risk if he agreed to help them. Yet somehow she knew he would. Her thoughts kept wandering back to the possibility of being hunted down on their trek by some dark and unseen adversary in the shadows. After a midday meal of fresh fruit, a variety of mild cheeses, and a particularly dense rye bread, Tawara led Athandra to a large white lattice gazebo. Sitting in the middle of the formal garden, the gazebo was a popular spot for members of the household and visiting dignitaries to relax in the afternoons, particularly after the midday meal. This garden reminds me of the one we have at Umari Manor, Tawara said, as she stepped in front of a moon blossom bush. There is one of these there that my mother planted on my first naming day. She leaned over the plant and plucked a gold and blue moon blossom, arranging it in her hair. Athandra nodded, smiling. We had better get going. I can see Captain Ithrin is already awaiting us. Tawara looked back at the garden entrance and made sure the two guards who had accompanied them through the morning stayed where they had been instructed. Satisfied, she turned toward the gazebo. They made their way down the paving stone path and over the small bridge crossing a koi pond. As they approached, Captain Ithrin stood and gave the ladies a formal bow. His face had a weary cast to it, and the sling on his arm contrasted with the sharpness of his uniform. My lady, Athandra, it is pleasant to see you this afternoon. To what do I owe the pleasure of being called upon? First, Tawara replied, may I say thank you for seeing us at such short notice. The nature of our need to talk with you is rather new to us. She paused to take a long drink of her wine. It is my pleasure. I hope I am able to adequately address your concerns, or fill any need you have of me, he told her. Tuara sat back in her white wicker chair and took a deep breath. She looked at Ethren long and hard before speaking. Captain, I am not exactly sure how to breach the topic, so I will come out and speak directly. She paused to look about and made sure no one was within earshot. Athandra and I have decided it is in my best interest if I were to decamp from here, just for a time, until whoever has been making these attempts on my life can be rooted out. Ethren rubbed his chin, slowly stroking his short beard. I see, he said, taking a sip of wine. And you expect to do this soon, I am guessing, leaving from here rather than waiting to get back to Tradoc. And I will guess you have chosen somewhere to go, far off, I would hope, perhaps even leaving the realm. He turned his gaze to Athandra. And I assume you plan to accompany her? No, I would guess the two of you are scheming this together. No matter. He sat for what seemed a very long time in silence. Eventually he spoke. I should go straight to the Premier with this. I should chastise you for the very thought of such an idea. What you are proposing is dangerous, to say the least. He paused before continuing in a softer tone. The truth is, however, I happen to agree with you. Tuara's breath caught at the mere mention of Ethren going to Corvin. Do not fear, I am most certainly not going to go to Corvin with this. A pained expression crossed his face. Since the unfortunate events of last night, I have spent what time I could, considering how best to protect you. You are not safe here, nor would you be safe in Tradoc. The safest thing to do would be send you away secretly. Had you not come to me, I would likely have approached you. I had thought to include the Premier in this plan. However, I believe the fewer that know about it, the better. Besides, he might have reservations about you not returning to Tradoc to participate in your father's funeral rites. She fanned herself and took a gulp of wine. Thank you, Captain. I fear the Premier would not see the wisdom in it. No, I dare say he would not. Now tell me the plan you have. Tell me what plan you have come up with thus far. We plan to go to the Samunas Monastery. It is in Adamar and well secluded. According to Athandra, it is rarely visited, even by the wood elves. An interesting choice, he said as he tapped the rim of his cup. There is a caravan leaving from here to that very monastery tomorrow. Very convenient as well. Yes, we had thought of that also. I am sure that some coins in the right hands can provide us the secrecy and security we need. Possibly, he agreed and paused to take a sip of his wine. However, it might still be wise to travel incognito, at least until you are out of Parom. Tuara finished her last sip of wine and placed her goblet on the floor beside her. Deep in thought, she did not pay attention at how she set the goblet down. It tipped over and shattered on the stone floor. Oh dear, she said, as she got up from her chair and knelt and began to pick up the shards of the broken glass. I am sorry, my mind is so preoccupied. I did not mean to— No, it is all right, my lady, Ethren said, standing and leaning over to gently take her arm. Leave that for the servants. That is, after all, what they are here for. The shards of wine-covered glass lay in her palms, remnants of a goblet so easily shattered, like so many lives that had been shattered by her carelessness. Would the wine stain her hands any more deeply than the blood already staining them? She stared for a moment. I suppose you are right, she replied, depositing them back onto the floor. She let Ethren pull her to her feet. He handed her a handkerchief, which she gladly accepted, as she took her seat again. Ethren returned to his chair and continued, as though the interruption had not occurred. I think I know of someone, a guard, that will be working the caravan. He is fairly high up in the caravan guard and should be able to provide the help we need. That would be most helpful, Athandra said, while standing to refill her wine glass. Yes, he continued, you are going to need several things, such as food, not to mention new clothing. Clothing? What is wrong with my clothing? Tuara asked indignantly. Nothing is wrong with it so long as you are Princess-elect Tuara Umari. If, on the other hand, you are a pilgrim, making a trek to a monastery, it is quite inappropriate indeed. There should be no difficulty finding what we need in the city market, Athandra added. The only challenge will be getting there. I am sure it will draw attention for a lady and her handmaid to leave the palace to go among the commoners in the city market. Oh, and horses. I have noticed that those seem to be at a premium here. Yes, that could present a problem. I can procure the things you need. I will need sizes for the clothing. As for horses, I think I know a man who would be willing to provide a pair. It will be costly, but I think you would agree, my lady, that it is worth spending the coin. I will contact my friend in the guard and apprise him of the two women who wish to make a pilgrimage to the monastery. He will not know your identities, but can make whatever arrangements will be needed. Twara nodded and reached for her goblet of wine before remembering it was now only shards of glass on the ground. She looked at Athandra's glass with longing. Athandra, mid-sip, noticed her pining. She finished her sip, lowered her goblet, and rolled her eyes. In mock reluctance, she held out her goblet for Twara, who meekly took it from her. Captain Ethrin watched the exchange and chuckled to himself. He stood and took up a silver pitcher. Here, let me refresh my lady's drink. Blushing at having been caught by the captain, Twara held out the new goblet for him. He filled it near to the brim and upended the pitcher to show that it was in fact empty. Thank you, good sir, she muttered in an abashed tone. You are quite welcome, my lady. He returned the pitcher to the table and gave a shallow bow to her. There is much to do and very little time in which to do it. I will make the necessary arrangements and send a communication to you. He paused and looked thoughtful. I will also make sure Corvin is pacified. He will not be happy that you are gone, but he will need to be told something to keep him from searching for you. With your father's passing, he will be occupied the next several days maintaining trade discussions and stabilizing the position of Avalonia and Cuvia. He has already ordered the activation of the Western Guard. I sent communications out this morning. I will keep your absence from him as long as I can and provide the protection you need to remain at Samunas until it is safer to return. Thank you, Captain, Twara said. I know this is a heavy burden to place on you on top of all that has happened. That leads me to one more thing. I cannot send you away alone. But we must go alone. We cannot risk others knowing where we have gone. That defeats the purpose. Nor can I, in good conscience, send a princess-elect into another realm with only her handmaid to protect her. You must agree to this, or I cannot help you. Before you respond, hear me out. I will send a few of my men, the ones I told you would be watching you from a distance. They are here They were here with us in Glen Heights. They will join the caravan as travelers as well. You will not know who they are, but they will guard you and see that no harm comes your way. I would have sent them anyway, but I wanted to make you aware. If anything should happen, they will be there to protect you. Though she would not admit it, she felt relief at Ethrin's words. Of course he would send someone to watch her, but knowing they would be there, and knowing that they were Ethrin's trusted men, gave her a sense of ease. Very well, Captain, I agree, and again I thank you. With that he gave another small bow. If you will excuse me, I have business with certain guardsmen to attend to. Twara nodded her approval as Athandra stood to give a slight curtsy. Go in good spirits, Captain, and thank you, she said. He bowed his head again. Go in good spirits, my lady. At that he turned and exited the gazebo. He crossed the bridge over the koi pond and down the stone-paved path. Twara watched him go for several moments. That went far better than I could have hoped. He not only approves, but he is going to help us as well, she said, when she had finished observing the captain leave. Yes, in truth, I didn't think he would be so keen on the idea, Athandra replied. We are lucky he is loyal to you, and not so much to Corvin. Twara looked down at the now full wine goblet in her hand before taking a long, deep drink. Back in the room, the light of the window began to fail. Twara lit the oil lamp, and the warm yellow glow enveloped them in a soft light. They had been waiting for word from Captain Ethrin all afternoon, and it had finally arrived. Twara read over the note that had been scrolled in Ethrin's efficient script. It says we are to meet a caravan guard in the east stables at dawn. He will be wearing a yellow ribbon on his right arm. We are to go with him, and he will take us to where our things and our horses will be. It also says that we must leave in the half hour before dawn, that the guard will be changing at that time, and the room will be unguarded. Oh, gods, Athandra groaned. I didn't even think about it until now. I'm going to have to spend days traveling on the back of one of those beasts. I can feel the soreness already. Athandra, focus. It is all in motion. This time tomorrow we will be a full day's ride away from here, and everything that goes along with being here. We will be on the run. How exciting and terrifying. Tell me I can do this. Gods, no houses, servants, no meals served 3 times a day, just as I like them, no wardrobe to select dresses from, just a plain wool dress and food in our satchels and our own 2 hands to tend for ourselves. But on the bright side, no meetings, no Tessera glowering down at me when I do something so she deems inappropriate, and most of all, no Corvin. You forgot one. You forgot no one trying to track you down and slit your throat. That's kind of a big one, Athondra chided with a giggle. This is crazy, you know. I suppose the captain is willing to help. He has faith that we are capable. I hope he is able to find everything we will need. I do not think Captain Ithrin should have much trouble procuring the items we need. The most difficult part of it will be making sure he finds shoes that fit. You do have large feet for someone of your stature, Tuara teased. Athandra's cheek reddened slightly. I'm nearly as tall as you, my lady, thank you very much, and they aren't that big. Tuara laughed, strode across the room, and embraced Athandra. You know, I was determined not to like you, but from the day we met, you have been nothing but kind to me. I did not want a friend. I certainly did not want a competent tutor. Most importantly, I did not want someone I would grow close to. You had to go and ruin all of it, did you not? Do not deny it. Athandra blushed, apparently not knowing what to say. She joined in the embrace and gave Tuara a good squeeze. As they broke the embrace, both smiled at each other. She gave her a kiss on the cheek. A few tears escaped Athandra's eyes. She stepped away and turned to compose herself. We should probably get to bed, she said finally. It is late already, and we will have to be up at least an hour before dawn in order to make it to the rendezvous on time. Soon after climbing into the plush bed next to Athandra, Tuara fell into a fitful sleep. Dreams of her father's voice telling her to run and being chased by an unseen danger permeated her mind. The end of chapter 31.
All right.
Yep, there's very thin. There's not very much left at the end there. So it's getting close. And editing the book, not so much. But we'll see. We'll keep working. Keep working on it. Plugging away. If we can
We'll
get
get
back,
there.
if we can get back into a groove.
Yeah.
For now, we're going to have a guest join us. We're going to meet again with Liz Verity. So we look forward to another episode or another experience of learning with Liz. So we'll see you there. So, as you can see, we have, or here, I guess, if you're listening, you can't see. Sorry about that. But if you're on YouTube, you can see. It's another episode of Learning with Liz. Liz Verity, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Yeah, making progress.
Remember we had a discussion about that?
I know. I just had to throw it in there just because.
Yeah, Liz, how's your editing going?
Oh, well, you know, one step forward, two steps back.
Did your book join the track team or anything? Is it going off to college?
No, but they did take down a bad guy. Does that count?
Hey, that's good. That's good.
Good.
Yeah, let's not get into that whole discussion.
Yeah,
again.
we'll move on.
But no, how is just development overall
Development overall,
in your world of storytelling?
it's good. I'm still learning, still putting up posts on all the ways that I have found to improve my writing and hopefully help other people improve as well.
You're putting those posts up where?
I'm putting them on lizverity.com.
Lizverity.com.
Yes. Every week, every Tuesday.
Okay. So these topics, again, we have elected to start calling it Learning with Liz.
Works for me.
But all the topics that Liz comes on and graciously shares with us, you can go and get specific instructions, direction, help, her learning and education at lizverity.com.
Yes.
Again, sign up for her newsletter and you'll get these insights directly from her.
Yep. Directly to your inbox. And if you have any questions, you can always respond back to those emails. I get them and I can answer what you need.
Yeah. So go check out her webpage and join her email list and get educated, become a better writer. So, along those lines, what are we going to talk about today?
So today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is characters, specifically character arcs.
Okay.
So there are four different types of character arcs, um, subdivided into two different divisions. So the first one is a change character arc, and that is where the protagonist has a specific belief at the beginning of the story, and at the end they have the opposite belief.
Opposite or different? Does it need to be opposite?
It's usually opposite just because it's what they learn. So if at the beginning they're selfish, usually at the end they learn to be giving. Um,
So like at the beginning you do not like green eggs and ham, and then at the end you
you
do
do.
like green eggs and ham.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. That makes it, I guess, the easiest for readers to grasp the lesson of the story is if
Okay.
it's the opposite. Now, I'm sure there's probably examples out there where it's not really opposite, but it's different. And that can be the case as well. But it's usually um, going to change in a drastic way so people can see that it's definitely a change in the character by the end.
Okay.
So, and those they have two different ways they can slide. Obviously, you can have a positive change arc or you can have a negative change arc. So, positive is you start off with a false belief. You know, it's all about me. I'm the most important person, kind of thing. Can be the belief. And then by the end of the book, you're going to find the true belief or the real belief, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
which is where, like, okay, you know, people matter. I should put them above myself, that kind of thing. So it's generally a positive change in the person. That's why it's called a positive
Yeah.
change arc. And then there is negative change arcs, which is the opposite. They might start out and have the true belief, the real belief of, you know, like I should give to other people and that kind of stuff. But over the course of the story, things happen. They change their mind by the end. They're like, I'm just going to look out for me. I'm number one. So that would be a negative
So if you
slide.
play A Christmas Carol backward,
Yes.
you get that arc.
So
Yes.
that would typically be like a villain's arc.
Yes, yeah. Most villains' origin stories are that way. So if you've seen the Disney live action Cruella, her like I want to be a good person slides into being Cruella Deville. I don't know what are some other ones.
Maleficent.
Maleficent. Yes, hers is tricky because you know she's morally on a high ground because they made the good guy to look bad,
Yeah.
but at the same time she's willing to do a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
So at the beginning it's very much like yes, it's negative, but by the end she kind of learns something nice, but she's still, you
Yeah.
know, willing
Well,
to do bad.
I kind of take the approach of the Maleficent movies lead into Sleeping Beauty,
Yes.
where she was like definitely the bad guy.
Yeah,
in Sleeping
that's
Beauty.
true. Yeah, if you fall into that one, yes. So yeah, so that would be pretty much any of the books you see. I mean, I know there's Disney's doing a lot of villains books.
Yeah.
I know Melissa Meyer, I think her name is. She wrote Heartless, which is how the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland became evil. All of these would be the negative change arcs.
Gotcha. Are there any change arcs that you can think of where it's a negative change arc without the person becoming the villain, so to speak? It's just the arc itself ends on a downward spiral of some kind or another.
Change negatively, but they're not the villain.
They're not the villain. They don't become the villain. They just become the opposite, the negative opposite of themselves due to the telling of the story.
So I can't think of one on top of my head. I know there's some out there where it's usually in literary fiction where the author is trying to get across a moral of the story kind of thing. But it's where they start off with a certain mindset and the end they have a negative mindset, but they're not really ruining life for everybody else. You just know they didn't get the lesson.
Yeah. So, like one thing and maybe it doesn't quite fit, but maybe it does. I don't know. Is the movie Seven? Have you seen that?
I haven't.
So in that movie, it's based on like the seven refers to the seven deadly sins.
Okay.
And Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are detectives. Morgan Freeman is about to retire. He's kind of training Brad Pitt to take over as a detective, as his replacement
Okay.
on the, as the detective, like the main detective kind of guy. And then they discover there's murders that are happening. And what they find is that each of these murders are reference to the 7 deadly sins of gluttony and,
Okay.
all these different things. And this is totally going to be spoilers, but 7's been out for a long time.
Yeah.
So Brad Pitt at the beginning of the movie is like this hopeful detective. He wants to take over, and there is some a little bit of animosity or just differences there between Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. Just and he's not like the young hopeful everything's going to be great kind of thing, but it's well done from a realism perspective. Well, as they progress, like these murders get like worse and worse and worse, and just crazy stuff that happens. And then the last of the 7 deadly sins is like each victim that the bad guy, and you don't know who the bad guy is along the way until like we get to the end. We keep seeing, so Kevin Spacey's in it, and you keep seeing Kevin Spacey through the movie. Well, then like the last of the 7 deadly sins is murder.
Okay.
And so it's like somebody who was gluttonous, he kills the gluttony guy by forcing him to eat and then beating him till his stomach explodes. Like, so he dies from gluttony.
Okay.
And then it's, each of the 7 deadly sins, the person dies from whatever that thing is.
Okay.
But you get to the end and Kevin Spacey has murdered all these people. So he is a murderer. So for him to die by the same way that all these other people were killed would be by the 7th deadly sin. And so at the end of the movie, they go to where Kevin Spacey is, or they arrest him. He comes into the police station. He's got blood all over him, and they arrest him right there. And then he's like, he killed somebody. And so he tells them he'll only go, and these 2 detectives have to go with him. And he goes out into the desert, and then Morgan Freeman goes and looks at like the murder, and then Brad Pitt's like, "What is it? What?" And he's like, "Don't come over here. Stay away." Well, Brad Pitt kind of doesn't listen to him, and he comes up and he opens up a bag, and his wife's head is in the bag.
Oh dear.
And so he's got his gun, and the Kevin Spacey is standing right there. And then Morgan Freeman is like, "No, no, don't. Like, you got to control." And then he's like, "Okay, okay." And as soon as Morgan Freeman steps away, he's like, and shoots the Kevin Spacey in the head.
Yeah.
And it's like he became like what he did to Kevin Spacey. It wasn't justice.
Yeah.
From a legal perspective, it was he murdered Kevin Spacey. Like, did he become the villain? His arc was he went from the hopeful detective into he just murdered Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
But, so did he become the villain at that point?
I mean, like some people would think that's justice. So
Yeah.
that is a tricky. It's kind of like most vigilante stories. While you're saying that, I was like, so kind of like I'm not a huge Batman fan, but like Batman is, he has that. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily in the movie. I mean, you see it in the flashback, but his parents are killed or whatever, and that's him digressing. Like how he deals with that is he becomes the criminal, but like for justice purposes.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, because vigilantism is criminal activity.
Exactly. Just they try to justify it.
It's against the law to be a vigilante.
Yes.
You can't take justice into your own hands.
Exactly. So in that case, it'd be like however the author flavors it. I mean, if they want to say, hey, this is justice he's carrying out, and they do it in a positive light, it might not be seen as a negative character change arc, but like if they show the bad side of it, then I would think that, that would probably be a negative one.
Yeah. Along those lines, can you really be that good of a good guy if your entire persona is I'm dressed up like an animal and wear tights?
Yeah. Yeah. That would be kind of hard.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so that would be the change arcs. And some good examples of it. I mean, positive change arc, that's pretty much every character out
Yeah.
there, basically. I mean, they all try to be that way. So that's the change arcs. That's the first division of the
Yeah.
four types. The second is the steadfast arcs, and these are ones that they start with one belief and they end with the exact same belief.
Yeah.
Now, in the middle, they can fluctuate. They can doubt it and then come back to it, or they can grow stronger in it. But they don't change their mind. At the end, is they still have the same value as they do at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so, of those ones, there's positive and negative. You have a positive belief at the beginning, it's still positive at the end. You have a negative one at the beginning, it's still a negative one at the end.
Yeah.
So those are still the same. But within that, I kind of like to classify them even more as like there's a dynamic steadfast and then there's a static steadfast. So like static steadfasts are ones that you don't see growth quite as much. They are who they are. You think
They
like,
maintain the same level of belief
yes,
of whatever that belief is.
exactly. Like James Bond,
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes, Miss Marple, like these characters that appear every series, and you'll see them grow in some ways, but like they're the same person throughout all this.
Yeah. Julia Childs.
Yes. Yes. So those are the static ones. The dynamic ones are what I would call more of the villain stories or the hero stories. So like you start off with thinking that, the world isn't a nice place. And, and by the end you think it's so despicable, I want to destroy it. And that's kind of, so if you think of the X-Men, Mystique, the one that changes what she looks like. She starts out with the world isn't a nice place, but she's on the right side. But by the end, she goes with Magneto because she thinks it needs to be destroyed like he does.
Yeah.
He's the static one. He thought it was supposed to be destroyed at the beginning. He still thinks it's supposed to be destroyed. But she's the dynamic one. Or actually, yeah, she's a negative change arc because she starts off positive and goes negative. But in a specific movie, she's already negative and she just gets farther into it. So she grows into that. Or like a hero, you can get stronger in it. So you think of like Captain America. At the beginning, he's all about standing up for himself and, the innocent and that kind of stuff. And that belief grows as he gets more power, as he has more influence. He steps into that farther and becomes that hero. But he doesn't really change what he believes from the beginning to the end. So those are the steadfast ones that stay the same. So when writing a book, most people like to do the positive change arcs. They want to see somebody get better. But that doesn't mean you can't do the other ones. But if your steadfast is going to be a main one, I usually say a sub character should have a change arc. And
like
then
either positive or a negative change arc.
Yes. Yeah. It makes it more interesting for the readers to have that. And then it's also somebody for your steadfast to bump up against. Like they're constantly being challenged by this other person. And that makes them interesting because they might flip, eventually. So, what's an example? You think of Beauty and the Beast. Belle doesn't change.
Yeah.
She's the exact same good person from beginning to end. But the Beast changes. He starts out on the negative side, turns to positive. So the two of them paired together make a great story because you have them hitting against each other, but you still have that one steadfast one and that one that changes.
Yeah. And then you have like the opposite of Belle, of Gaston, at least in the
yes
cartoon,
where he kind of has that negative steadfast. He starts out with it's all about me, and at the end he's so obsessed with the fact that it's all about him that he thinks he can go and murder people because it gets him what he wants because it's all about him.
Yeah. Although I did see one of those little analysis things that is like, is Gaston really the good guy? He wants to live in this town and get married and have kids. And then when he discovers there's a horrible beast who has a girl held captive, he goes and sacrifices himself trying to save her.
Yeah. and that would work if he hadn't locked her up to go kill that beast.
Yeah.
But
it was a
yeah.
threat to the town. It had giant fangs.
Yes. No, and that makes sense. I mean, there's a whole lot wrong with Beauty and the Beast and, Stockholm syndrome and all that
Yeah.
jazz, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
Ah.
So
Yeah, it's very much a Stockholm syndrome.
mhm. Yeah. But that's okay.
But he has a big nice library, so it's okay.
He does, yes. Anyone can lure me with a big library, so I'm good with
Yeah.
it.
Which another side comment here, specifically on Beauty and the Beast, someone pointed out that, all of the things in the house were people. Like everything, even down to the silverware and everything.
Yeah.
Was somebody a toilet?
Well, I don't know. Maybe. I was gonna say the furniture, but that's kind of like sealed into the house.
Well,
I mean, did we
or,
see shutters or anything like that be a person? It was only
I don't
only movable things.
I mean, maybe. So with that time period,
That's true. Your chamber pot, maybe.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Chamber pot. Somebody was the chamber pot. Imagine the PTSD that person's gonna have for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So
I can never eat peanut butter again.
yeah, that'd be lovely.
So many things.
So what about your guys' books? What do you have for your main characters? What are their kind of arcs going on? I mean, you don't have to be too specific. I know we're not done with the book yet, but what's I mean,
Let's see.
Tuaro, how would you classify her arc?
So from we're far enough away from finishing our books. Somebody's gonna go back and listen to this episode and be like, wait a minute, I remember hearing this. Does that even make sense? So I would think like the way Tawara is going, like the way we have planned for her is she has this positive outlook and these ambitions, and then as her story goes, she gets like starts to have a negative arc. Sure, there's still some positive things, but then it like more mistrust and more negative direction. Athandra kind of shifts that same way as well, just a result of the experiences they have and the chaos and stuff that goes around them. Ultimately, they're both going to come back from to a perspective of not a hero's arc, but they'll end up coming back around more to how they are at the beginning, more of that hopeful and everything. And part of it's because of the changing dynamics of the entire world that are going to happen. So along with that, we have some characters that start out as, sort of positive, start becoming negative, and then will become like ultimate villains by the end.
Okay.
And a couple characters that start out with they start out on a trajectory of kind of a hero's arc and then catastrophe, maybe even to the point where you think like I don't know, our readers may think they're going to become the hero.
Okay.
But then tragedy will inevitably either change them or destroy them.
Okay.
So we've got multiple.
Sounds like a lot
arcs.
of negative change arcs going on. They start out
Negative
good,
but dynamic. They're not.
Okay.
They're not a steady slope. It's something will change them for the negative, and then something will remind them who they are or what their goal is, and then they'll sort of arc back up and then get beat down, and so it's very dynamic. It's not a very it's not a
or they might die.
Or they might die. So do you have like what I like to call the hidden positive change arcs, where it's just like somebody in the background that you don't pay too much attention to, but then in the end, they're like one of the big heroes. Not like the hero, but like a bigger hero.
So our story, the wrapping up of our story, will be that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited to see
the total finishing scenes of our story is, again, if you don't want spoilers, don't listen to my statement. It won't be that much of a spoiler because hopefully you don't figure it out yet. But the people you think throughout our story will be the heroes, no matter which direction they're coming from, will not be the heroes.
Okay.
And characters that go away and come back, or that have minor parts to play, will end up with major things happening to them toward the end of the story. That will change the trajectory of everything.
Yeah. Sounds exciting.
So that's how we have it planned.
Yeah.
And mapped out as of right now.
Yeah, those characters, they could change things on you though. They're pretty good at that.
I mean, we just, like Jared had said before, we introduced a new character. Like we will introduce new characters.
Yep.
And some of those will have like world level impact on things, and will have different rise or fall.
Yeah.
So
cool. So Jared,
Yes.
seems like you don't talk too much. What's your favorite kind of character arc to write?
My favorite kind of character arc to write?
Yes.
Probably positive character arc that's very dynamic.
Yeah.
Where you see them going off the straight and narrow, but not totally losing themselves in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can be redeemed as you go along.
Yeah.
But definitely someone who sees the bad and is affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
So we have some I just thought of some more side characters. I'm trying to mentally project who I'm thinking of into your brain.
See how synced these two writers are.
Yeah.
And Jared guess.
Like some
what Chris is
specific
thinking.
side characters who the redemption arc that where they go off the straight and narrow. They're not main characters, they're side characters, but will have a redemptive arc that has an impact on the overall trajectory of our main characters' lives.
My brain is blank.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm going to put in my 2 cents. I hope it's the captain. He's an interesting character.
I mean, I got all kinds of stuff flowing through my head. And
There's 2 specific ones that I'm thinking of. One will have a non-redemptive arc, and one will have a redemptive arc, and both of them will have a direct impact on our characters. And right now, both of them are just barely being introduced in what we're writing right now. I don't know. Well,
we've introduced several.
Yes.
Yeah, in 14 books, you can't narrow down what 2 characters he's talking about.
Yeah, come on. We only have, within book 1, what did we say? We only have 36 named characters?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Book 1?
Yeah, no, I get that. I work in Scrivener, and they let you have these files on the side where they list out all of your folders, and I have a folder that's characters and then sheets for all of my characters, and I'm like, this is the longest section in here.
Yeah.
It's like so many people.
Right now, the only character arc that I can really focus on is one that it's a positive character arc, but it's going to get very dark in a couple of books. I guess starting maybe at the end of the next, not this coming book, but the next one, the 3rd book. And I haven't decided, because it's kind of a character that I write more of. I haven't decided, and I haven't talked with Chris really to hash it out, how dark their arc is going to get before the redeeming things come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to write that in the future because I already have how things could go, and I think you probably know what I'm talking about.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If we had instant messenger open, we could like back and forth talking about this person. I could be like, yeah.
Now, class, let's keep everybody in the loop.
Yes. See, this is why we've talked about we want to do like a Patreon or a Substack thing where we can just openly talk about here's what this character's going to do. What do you guys think? And then get people's input and feedback and even recommendations where they can say.
Like a brainstorming chat room.
Yeah, exactly. So we can do deep dives into future stuff and lore and all the different things and be like, don't come here if you don't want spoilers. Because we're going to uncover it all.
Yep.
So maybe we still haven't. I'd like to do that, but we haven't moved in that direction yet.
That's
so,
okay.
We'll see.
Hey, when you find that time.
Yeah.
You know, or just invent more of it, and then you could probably sell it to people, and then you'd be rich, and you'd have, you know.
Maybe you can buy it on Marketplace.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'd
probably get on and be like, oh no, this was the Wish version. And somehow.
It didn't work.
Yeah. Like, I'm now one of the undead. I tried to use the Wish version of time. So you said that the character arcs, this is one of your favorite topics.
Yeah, I just love characters in general. I'm all about characters. Like, I have a series on my website, Verity.com, because I know you're going to ask me about it again. Anyways, it's called Character Under a Microscope. And it's where I just dive into all these little things that make people.
Yeah.
So it's not really much about writing as it is understanding people and what makes them act or not act. And then how you can use those in your books to actually well develop your characters so that they look fully fleshed out on the page and stuff. And you don't have to do it for every single one, but just like a little tidbit here and there for some of them kind of makes them feel more grand. So I do love characters, but the character arcs are fun because it's challenging. Just because when you first start writing out, like everybody writes the positive change arc, like we're going to go from bad to good.
Yeah.
But it's fun to kind of play with the other ones and be like, okay, I want to write this negative change arc, but in a way that's satisfying for the audience. And that's really hard to do because most people don't like a sad ending, but it's a fun challenge. So
yeah. So while you were talking about that, a scene jumped into my mind.
Okay.
And it is, it's actually it looks legitimate. It's, from everything I've seen, it's a deleted scene from Harry Potter.
Okay.
And it's a scene where when the Dursleys are leaving and Harry's staying, and it's like when he comes of age.
Okay. The beginning.
What's that?
At the beginning?
No, like in the Deathly Hallows, like when he turns 17.
Oh,
and so
at the end. Okay.
the protection is coming off the house and everything like that. So the Dursleys were packed up and they're moving. They're leaving the house. And Mr. Dursley is all like huffing and, you know, his normal self.
Yes.
And then they're going to get in the car. And then Dudley stops and Mr. Dursley's like, Dudley, get in the car. And, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he walks up to Harry. And I'm like, so he walks up to Harry and stands in front of him. And then, you know, in his Dudley manner, he kind of smiles. And then he says, you know, Harry, like, you've been told forever, like, that you're worthless and that you're a waste of space and all this stuff. And he's like, but you aren't to me. And you never have been. And I'm sorry, like, kind of apologize. Like, just this total change of, like, we get to see a Dudley character arc.
Yeah.
And then he, like, essentially expresses, like, I'm going to be better because of you, kind of thing. And then he goes and gets in the car and drives away.
Huh.
And I'm like, it's only like, I don't know, a minute and a half scene.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that scene was awesome. Why did they cut that out? Like, it makes, you know, this whole arc of, like, this change in Dudley where you see over time, like, some struggle within him, but then after all he's been through, that when push comes to shove, when it's down to the end of him deciding who he's going to be, that he chooses, is like,
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to follow my upbringing. I'm going to take my own future in my hands.
Yeah. And I was like, total side character arc thing that we were like, who decided to cut this out? It was like 1.5 minutes out of 4 hours. And that's what you cut out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is kind of sad because it's nice. Everybody wants to see that kind of redemption.
Yeah.
Type
We'll have to
arc.
look it up and watch it. And so you can see it. And if you haven't seen it, if you're listening to the podcast, well, I guess I'm talking and you're hearing my voice.
I was going to say, I
don't
think
need
they're
to say
listening.
if. For the, go look it up. It's really, and if you disagree, I'm like, I was like, why did they cut this out?
Yeah.
This was like a great character moment.
Yeah, because nobody really cares about Dudley.
No.
I mean, like, he's just an annoying person we have to deal with. So yeah, that would have actually made him memorable, maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't worth the money, I guess, to keep it in or whatever they had to do to crunch things down.
I don't know. I think it was a stupid decision. But it's we get to see, because they left that out, it's kind of along the lines of, Dudley was a kid and he was growing up and all these things, but without that scene, we get to see Dudley be like little tiny insights into, maybe there's a side of him that's a little bit good.
Yeah.
But without something about that, it's kind of like, not all bad guys are all bad. Not all good guys are all good.
Yep.
And so without that scene, we're kind of left with a taste of, well,
he's all bad.
He's all bad and will always be all bad.
Yeah.
He's
a
his
product
father.
of his family.
He's his father and mother's son, and there is no redeeming qualities within him at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they thought there was too much redeeming because, I mean, what's his name? The blonde. Malfoy. He's kind of redeemed in the end. I mean, he switches over to help Harry a little bit. So they don't, I mean, besides Voldemort, they don't really have too many that aren't, because...
Yeah.
So maybe they just thought, we needed another bad guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember in the books, if there's any kind of redemption arc for Dudley at all.
He's a forgettable character. Like, I know his name, but like, I honestly don't remember most of the things about him except for he was spoiled.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'm like, even if that wasn't in the books, and they're like, well, it's not really in the books, we're not going to add it in, whatever. I was like, yeah, but that was a great arc that could have just added that additional element.
Yeah.
To the story of real people, real connecting with those characters. Like, even if you're like, well, I don't really care about connecting with Dudley specifically, but within the world that's created in those stories, or in that story, it's like, here's another character that we can all in some way connect to from a redemptive perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of fills out Harry's arc as well. I mean, he spent all those years suffering, and you think he got nothing out of it except for safety from Voldemort.
Yeah.
But if in the end you think he had that actual positive impact on Dudley, then you're like, oh, well, look at that. Like, even in that suffering, he was able to do good. He was able to spread love. I think is his main thing. Is through love I'm able to conquer or whatever. So, that would be beneficial for his arc as well.
Yeah. We could have had Clucky the hen right in the back scene hop out of the woods and be like, true love conquers all, right before the arrows fly at her.
Exactly.
Crossover there.
Yes, a little bit of Robin Hood.
Yes. So you asked Jared the question, what's your favorite arc? What is your favorite?
I kind of like the negative arcs. It can be change arc or it can be a steadfast arc. But if it's steadfast, I want it to be dynamic. Like, I want them to grow in their resolve of that false belief. Just because I have a background in psychology and sociology, so I enjoy that kind of mind games of like, what would what are all these little things that someone can choose to do that in the end will add up to being this bad person? Because it's not just, I mean, okay, there are some out there that I believe some people are born with the evil. I mean, like they don't get the concept. They think killing's fine, and that's something in them that's just messed up. But most people become bad over time because of small decisions.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to explore that and be like, okay, well, here's an opportunity for them to choose the right thing, but they don't because of this. And here's an opportunity again, but they don't. And here's an opportunity again.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy writing those heartbreaking scenes where it's like they realize that this is what it is. And there's no going back now. And it's just like, okay, I picked this path. This is what my life is going to be, and I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
That being said, I like the redemptive too. I like to bring them to that point and then bring them up.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that downward spiral and just exploring that side of humanity a little bit.
So I had a little question that I had from that plays into what you were just talking, or that description of what you were just talking about, ish, I guess.
Okay.
How do you feel about stories that like lead down this negative path to the point where like the story ending itself is like destruction or annihilation or whatever, like the things have come to fruition and then the person who spiraled into badness, it's like they are the villain now, but then they've done their evil work and then they just go on and like that's the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're like, wait a minute, just everybody died.
Everybody died and then moved on.
They dropped the bomb and then they're like,
mm-hmm. Like, I don't know about like mass
done.
destruction stories, but have you ever read Wuthering Heights?
I haven't. I've seen.
Okay.
But
it's basically a story of a guy and a girl that fall in love, but neither one of them are great people. And she wants someone rich. And so she rejects him. And his whole thing is to ruin her life, even though he loves her. And so you see this whole story of how he's, one step at a time taking everything she loves until she has to come back to him. And then he just continues, like, just ruining her life, everybody's life in her life kind of thing. Like, it's just this huge spiral thing. And there really isn't any redemption in the end. Yeah. Like, it's like they both kind of die at the end and you're like, huh, okay. But it's just, it's interesting to see how stuck they are, because even when he was successful, she wouldn't go back to him because of his past and his reputation or whatever. Like, so it's like they were both so stuck in their ways that they couldn't just be together, even though they loved each other.
Yeah.
And they destroyed everybody around them. And I like those endings when they're thought-provoking, when it's like, oh my goodness, like, what if that did happen? How did that affect? Like, what am I doing that is maybe ruining everybody's life around me that I could fix? And so, I mean, I'm a deep thinker, so I like having those kind of endings. Now, I don't want every book I read to be that depressing.
Yeah.
But at times, yes, I do enjoy books that are like that kind of give you that, what if thought at the back of your mind when you finish.
So kind of along those lines, I mean, a little bit different, but I guess it's along those lines of like the trajectory of things going, and then you get to the end and you're like, there is no save the day, rescue, or anything like that. It's just like it fades into the darkness kind of ending. Stephen King, The Mist. Have you read that?
I haven't.
So it's...
I hear he's really bad at endings, so I haven't read any of his books. But I keep telling myself I should.
Yeah. I mean, this one actually is, from an ending perspective, it's not like, wait, it was aliens. Or it's supernatural. Yes. Why? It hasn't been super... Well, just because.
They do Ex Machina, where it's just like, because.
Yeah. So this, like, there's a big storm, and people are... Like, after the storm, there's trees down and a lot of power out and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they're on the coast, and it looks like this fog coming in. behind, after the storm. They're like, it's coming in, whatever, And then when the guy goes to town, the main character goes into town and he's in the store. And while he's there, like the fog covers the whole town, but it's like a really thick fog. And then all of a sudden people start running and screaming and from outside, and people like are dying and there's blood and gore and stuff. And people inside are trying to figure out what's going on. And then like in this fog is like big, like giant bug things that like spiders with webs that if it lands on cars, it'll like eat through the car like acid.
Okay.
There's little bugs that fly around and will like inject you with poison and kill you and then eat you.
Oh,
like
lovely.
while you're still partially alive or whatever. All kinds of crazy stuff going on. Even like giant things that are like the size of, bigger than a house with, like spiders with legs that are, the length of a football field walking around kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the people end up making it into a car and they drive away into the mist, and then it's talking about like they're running out of gas and stuff, and there's a show on it. The show ends differently than the book, but like the army comes and rescues, but there's like the show's a little bit different. It has a troubled ending, but it's different. In the story it's a short story in the book.
Mm-hmm.
They like are driving into the mist and stuff is like that's how Earth is now.
I was just covered in mist and
it's covered
bugs.
Everywhere is covered in mist and these big things. Like there isn't any way to stop them. I mean, because you can't, if you killed 1 million bugs a day, you still couldn't kill all the bugs.
Yeah.
But only these ones are giant, and some of them like spit acid, and so they can rip a car apart, and some of them are bigger than buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's now their world. And they are like driving into the mist, and then they're like, well, I guess this is it.
And that's the end of the book.
And then like, that's the end.
Yeah, I don't like those. So there's a difference between ending negatively and ending without hope. And that one is without hope.
Yeah,
and that is
totally
not my type of story. I'm all for that ray of hope, even if it's just like a sliver. I think in Wuthering Heights, there's a daughter, maybe. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read it. But there was somebody, I think it's her daughter from somebody else. I don't know. But there's somebody there that you're like, oh my goodness, you're going to carry on the story. And I think that the actual narrator guy, he's just a passerby and he's just hearing about the story. So he's not even living it. He's just hearing about how these two ruined each other's lives in the entire like area. But you have him going away from it with a lesson.
Yeah.
So it's like there's still that little bit of hope at the end. I think that's important.
So from a negative character arc, have you watched The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix?
No.
Okay, because like you said,
Not
you were
a big
interested in
Batman person.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but like it is this. It's more of a psychological investigation into a character, the Joker character.
Okay.
It's not the classic Joker character. But from this that negative arc, it's they start out negative and then spiral downward and then embrace it more fully and then become this,
It's like a steadfast negative arc.
Yeah, or well, even I guess even at the beginning, he doesn't really start out negative. He starts out positive, but doubting things, and then it just gets nobody's listening to him, and there's more tragedy, and it spirals downward until he becomes this negative
So does he hold the belief? Because you can have negative story, but like, does he, whatever he is in the end? So say he thinks everyone should die. At the beginning, is there hints of like, okay, people should just die, or is it just like
at the beginning, it's he has this perspective of how like things are a certain way and they should change.
Okay.
And then by the end, it's things are the way that he originally believed, but there is no way to change. Okay. Instead, it's you can't change them, so
just join them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so it would be a negative change then.
Yeah. So from your psychology perspective, I'm like, it might be interesting to pursue that and investigate it.
That would be. I might have to look it up.
You could write one of your things about negative arc from the perspective of the Joker.
Of the Joker. Yes. He'd probably be a good one.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a different take on the Joker, from the classic Batman comic books and whatnot. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're in an era now where everybody wants their villain story and they want it to be like either one that they can relate to, like, oh, that's so sad, I pity them that they became the villain, or they want like the redemptive, like, I want a villain, but in the end, like, I want it to be for understandable reasons and for him to do something redemptive at the end. Like, nobody wants pure evil for evil anymore.
Yeah. But so some of that is kind of, I wonder about people's psychology, where it's like, we want to connect to the bad guy. And be like, well, because of this, you can kind of see why they did that. I'm like, do we really want to walk down that?
Yeah, not really.
Psychological path.
Exactly. But I think as humans, we're afraid of things that we can't understand. And most people cannot understand evil for pure evil reasons. Like, there has to be a reason behind it. Like, there's some fact that made them this way, and so that's what we want, because pure evil scares us, because there's no reason for it. There's no way to protect from it. So
kind of like calculus.
Yes. It's exactly like calculus.
Yes. So, yes, character arcs. Yeah, there's a lot. I'm a big character. Well, Jared and I, our books are based on, we have the story, or like, we know what the plot is. We want people to connect, either love or hate.
Yes.
For characters.
Well, the characters are why people stick around. They come for the plot, they stick around for the characters. Like, that the back of the blurb, like, it doesn't tell you, oh, this is a great guy and he's going to overcome a lot of stuff and it's going to be great. Like, nobody would be interested in that. But if you say, okay, we're going to strike back against the Empire, whatever, it's like, oh, yeah, I can get behind that. But if the characters were boring, then nobody would stick around for it. They stick around for Luke and all of them. So,
yeah,
it's a good thing to have.
Yeah. So, hopefully, if you're a writer, some of this helps get you a little bit of perspective. If you're not a writer, this is what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is what we think about when we write people. Like, oh, do I want them to become evil or not?
Yeah.
Or more evil or more good?
Are we villains?
Yeah.
Or heroes?
Well, we kind of have to get in their mindset sometimes. So capability is there.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're okay.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on, we have to ask people connected to us.
Yeah. I wrote this scene. Do you think this says something about me?
Yeah.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at all. Like, I feel bad because there's several writers out there that get bad names, like horror writers. Everybody's like, oh, there's something wrong with you if that's what you write. I'm like, no, not really. I mean, I love a good villain, but you meet me, I am super positive all the time. So it's not like, if I can write this character, I'm this character. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But yeah, writers have to be versatile and we have to put ourselves in many people's shoes.
Yeah. Well, it's when we had Art on here and we were talking about the horror genre.
Yes.
And we're like, it's not everybody is interested in exploring the different perspectives of reality and the different depths of humanity.
Yes.
But some people want to understand or express themselves through a deeper understanding of those depths. And so your different character arcs and exploring, you can be very superficial in those character arcs, or you can go very deep.
Exactly.
And the deeper you go, the more likely you are to have things that some people may be turned off by them or find disturbing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that those things are bad things to explore.
Exactly.
But if you're going to explore them, you have to be okay with what you uncover if you turn those rocks over.
Exactly. Yep. And not everybody's going to read everything. So there's no such thing as a book for everyone. So write for your reader and you'll have people who want to read your book.
Yeah. Except for the little golden books that Jared and I recently found.
Those are for everyone.
They are for everyone.
Yes, I do love golden books.
So the little kids, the little golden books. You can go
I
to
have some.
Well, you can go to the store right now and get little golden books, Gremlins, and little golden books, Jaws.
Wow.
You can also
Really?
get the Chucky coloring book.
Okay.
And it's not like a knockoff. It is
It's
little
the
golden books.
literal.
It's little
Wow.
golden books, and it's the story of Gremlins and Jaws.
Okay.
I think there was another one, but I can't remember what
Yeah,
it
I
was.
can't remember.
I'm not sure I'd want my kid reading that, but an adult can read it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still read kids' books, so adults do read kids' books, but
Yeah.
that's interesting.
It's very interesting.
It says way too much about where our nation is heading.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us today again.
Yeah.
And once again, where can people find you?
LizVerity.com, where you can sign up for my weekly newsletter and browse through a bunch of topics if you're interested in learning how to write.
Yes. And she's very helpful, and she will, if you have questions, she responds. So
Let me know. I'll do my best to help you out.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun as always.
okay. Well, we appreciate it. Appreciate all you listeners out there that are joining us and following along with us. Come back next time. And until then, go in good spirits. Thanks for listening to the Creators Guild podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of A Flight from Shadows, available on Amazon. While you're there, please rate it and give it a review. If you like the Creators Guild, please like and subscribe, and make sure to share it with your friends. Until next time, go in good spirits.